Organised crime has infiltrated the tobacco industry.
Tobacconists have been firebombed since March in this escalating turf war.
It's the two major syndicates who are seeking to establish complete control.
The illicit tobacco trade's been exploding before our eyes, with authorities across the country targeting crime gangs fighting for control of the market.
Organised crime groups are using outlaw motorcycle gangs as their muscle to stand over rivals in the illicit tobacco trade, or also to stand over legitimate business owners to sell their product.
Australian Border Force officers are detecting record quantities of untaxed tobacco during routine checks like this one at a Melbourne warehouse.
The majority of illicit cigarettes are coming from China, Southeast Asia, or from the United Arab Emirates. These are legitimately produced in a lot of those countries. They become illicit when they cross the border without the duty being paid or without the health warnings being put onto the packaging.
This means a lucrative black market for the bikie gangs, who police believe are behind the trade. The profits are huge and the penalties smaller than other drugs.
An organised crime group can get 1 out of its 30 illicit tobacco shipping containers through to break even.
Former Federal Police and Border Force officer Rowan Pike says dodgy tobacco stores are popping up overnight in most states.
Certainly here in Victoria, we're the only state now that doesn't have a licensing regime, so anyone can set up a store and sell tobacco.
Which infuriates Theo Fukari, who heads up the peak body for convenience stores.
We've reported, as have our retail members, thousands of stores that are blatantly breaking the law every day, and our calls for action just continue to go unanswered.
Whilst we could raid tobacconists, what we know is that 24 hours later another one pops up. That's not a good use of our state and territory policing partners' time.
We're told illegal smokes can be as cheap as $15 a pack, about half the minimum price of legal cigarettes. The tax office calls it under-the-counter tobacco, and not all of it comes from Asia or the Middle East.
We believe more than half of the illicit tobacco that people are accessing under the counter in retail outlets and the like come from the established multinational tobacco industry.
The government imposes a 65% tax on tobacco products, which pushes the price of some legal packs of 25 ciggies over $60 each. Rowan, who now advises retailers on the illegal trade, says high taxes are a gift to criminal gangs.
The price is exorbitant, people don't want to pay it, they'll happily go to an illegal product to avoid it.
Theo says legitimate retailers are suffering.
Over the last 2 years, tobacco sales are down approximately 20%. Consumers are now not coming to our stores, so we're losing the other associated purchases. We absolutely need the government to step up and stop talking about enforcement, but actually putting some money behind it.
Commander Penny Spees says there's no quick fix.
Whilst we could have more officers at the border screening more containers, alone it's not enough to address the illicit tobacco trade. We need to keep working with our state and territory law enforcement and also health partners about what we can do to tighten up our regulatory and compliance functions that we have around illicit tobacco nationally.
The federal government this week updated existing tobacco laws, including warnings on individual cigarettes.
If a cigarette stick doesn't have that kind of warning, then you know that it comes from an illegal source, and that will make enforcement at a local level and at a retail level easier to do.
At the same time, tax on tobacco products will continue to rise by 5% a year for the next 3 years.
We know with unequivocal doubt that increasing the tobacco taxes creates a disincentive for people to start smoking, creates an incentive for smokers to quit.
Rowan Pike absolutely disagrees with that.
There's only one thing that will actually solve this problem, and that is reducing the price of the product. But assuming that government won't drop the price, then enforcement has to be increased greatly.
But while the debate continues, so does the violence. Extortion and even murder have become part of a growing turf war.
It's not a victimless crime. The profit made by organised crime is used to fund the importation of drugs and guns, and that's why we need to get ahead of it and make sure that we are taking the profit out of the crime.
price.
No, it's pretty heavy. And it's interesting because they did mention the idea that the increase in price is to try and deter people from using it. And in personal experience, I'm not so sure if that's true because I don't smoke cigarettes at all. But I was in Bali in July and I used to be an accountant and I sort of crunched the number difference. And it sort of made sense. I felt like I was losing money by not smoking. So I actually started smoking while I was in Bali.
They're so cheap over there.
Because it was just so cheap. It felt silly. I mean, admittedly, I was an accountant who got fired. So my numbers aren't always added up. But it just felt like something silly to do because it's cheaper.
It is interesting, though, isn't it, that the whole idea that bringing them down in order to stop this black market thing. I mean,
Yes.
I remember Tommy Lee from Motley Crue was here just a couple of months ago and he was, like, tweeting about just how expensive ciggies are here. But I think it's great for stopping kids from taking it up. But people who are already addicted, I mean, they're doing stuff like going without food so they can have their ciggies.
And the profits are pretty real. The tax office reckons that $2.3 billion was lost in lost excise revenue in 21-22. So they think that ultimately that means that amount went to organised crime.
And if you only need one container out of 30 to come through to break even, you can't set fines or punishment high enough to make that not something that you want to continue to do.
You could go to Indonesia with Dilruk.
Yeah.
Start a business. Joking.